Thanks so much for listening in, guys. Today we've got Dr. Nick Burgess, or I'm sure he just prefers to be called Nick because he's that kind of guy. And this evening we're going to talk about getting through the most difficult times in our lives and achieving our deepest goals and dreams. And I hope this is going to provide value to some of you listening. I hope you're able to get at least one thing out of this. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Dan.
So, Nick, I know a bit about you, but for viewers who are watching, can you tell them who you are, where you come from, and something about yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you said, my name's Nick Burgess. I'm a doctor. I work at a major metropolitan hospital in Melbourne. I suppose just a bit about myself. From a fairly working class background. First one in my family to go to university. I did my undergrad with yourself, as you'll be aware, and then went on and did a postgraduate studies in medicine. Before that, fairly, I suppose say, not humble backgrounds, but a bit of work and proud to be where I am today.
And just for those that are watching, so what part of Melbourne are you from? Do you live, like, where you're originally from? Are you a city boy? Are you
from the outer east, probably on the edge of what you consider suburbia. So out towards Lilydale, just where things start to become sort of semi-regional.
Did you go to a private school or a public school?
No, I went to public primary school and a public secondary school, actually. So I had the option towards the end of my schooling when my folks sort of said, it's clear you're going to go to university, and said, if you'd like, we can scrimp and save a bit and send you to a private school, but I chose to stay in the public program.
So for parents or kids, I guess, wanting to go down a path such as yours that certainly requires good grades and a lot of dedication, is it necessary to go to a private school? If you don't go to a private school, does it mean are you at less of an advantage, or what are your thoughts on private, that kind of mentality, and private versus public?
Yeah, I mean, you listed two things there: good marks and dedication. I think the latter is probably the most important. I mean, to be frank, I think yes, going to a public school probably does put you at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of connection. Some of these private schools do streamline people into looking towards higher degrees. So there is a disadvantage, I would say, going to a public school in some sense. For me and for a few other doctors I know who have gone through similar pathways to me, what it came down to was having a bit of determination and was a willingness to keep on trying. So I wanted to be a doctor out of secondary school. I didn't get the scores I needed to. So that's why I went and did the undergrad biomed degree with yourself. And from there I went in through the graduate pathway. So there's definitely ways to get in, even if you don't right out of school.
Yeah. And so in your position now as a practice, leading into a psychiatrist, fully recognised specialist psychiatrist, does going to a private or a public school, does it have much bearing or impact in your performance that you're in now later on in your career?
I think going to a public school probably does give a bit of perspective. I suppose there is a bit of a bubble that a lot of people who go to private schools live in. And I think getting a bit of exposure to the real world, so to speak, is invaluable. It's something that can't be bought. And I think it does help me certainly relate to a lot of the patients I see and probably deliver better care because of it.
So you're saying that, growing up in a working class area, going to school as well with people that aren't as, privileged, particularly financially, it makes you more relatable as a doctor?
I think it certainly gives you perspective. And I think a lot of how relatable you are comes down to the individual, who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Uh, but getting that exposure, certainly understanding how some people live, how they grow up, it definitely is an advantage.
Yeah.
It does help you relate and understand.
Nick, who would you say is one of the most influential people in your life, and can you tell us why?
Yeah, so I'd say my grandfather, my dad's dad.
Yeah, you've spoken about him before. We've spent some time together previously, and you have spoken about him. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So he's a farmer, a market gardener, so growing vegetables. And I think the thing about my pa that I respected the most, it wasn't that, he was, the highest achiever or set out to change the world, but he had probably has probably one of the strongest work ethics that I've ever come across. And not only that, but an integrity as well in the way that he conducts himself. And there was nothing you could ask him that would be too big a favour. He would always go out of his way to help. And essentially, without going into too much of a backstory, basically built himself up from nothing. Started a farm, lost everything through essentially generosity and trust, and was taken advantage of. And rather than letting it defeat him, built it all back up again, and went on to be a real cornerstone of the family. And, he's a man who I've got immense respect and love for.
Nick, do you use social media? And if so, what platforms are you using?
I've got a Facebook and I have an Instagram, but as to how, I wouldn't say I'm an avid user. No, I use them more to keep in touch and just to sort of keep abreast of what's going on, but I don't use them much.
So when you say keeping abreast of what's going on, do you mean in the news?
No, so more like if someone's having a party or getting a sense of what's going on in my friends' lives. Probably a little bit one-sided. I don't tend to share very much about my own on social media, but I do like to know if friends have a kid or if there's a housewarming or a birthday coming up. It's always nice.
Nick, what are some of your biggest struggles in life?
My biggest struggles in life. It's a good question. I mentioned earlier on that I don't come from the wealthiest family or have, I suppose, the biggest advantages in where I went to school or anything. But I think for myself, most of the challenges I had were internal. Were more things like self-doubt and anxiety, and really questioning myself a lot of the time. And I'd say that those things, the internal battles, were a bigger challenge than anything that life threw at me, so to speak. It was more within myself.
Yeah. And was there anything that happened to you when you were young that gave you that, those fleeting thoughts, which we all get, we all get those negative thoughts running through our head. I think that's only human. But is there anything particular, was there an experience that happened when you were growing up that gave you elements of self-doubt? Were there some particular moments or experiences or events that happened in your life that gave you that kind of internal conflict?
I wouldn't say that there were any single events, no. I think it was the environment I grew up in. I had parents who were in a very unhappy marriage. There was a tension in the home, certainly, when I was growing up. And I think a lot of that tension I took on within myself. And I think a lot of people who grow up in similar households do. And for a long time, that sense of stress and anxiety, it really it was very present within my own life. And it became very problematic there for a while too.
So, would you say that your environment had a significant role in your mentality as a young age?
Yes, absolutely. I think every young person to some extent, more or less depending on the person, is shaped by their environment and their experiences, and I was no exception.
Yeah. And so, dealing with those internal conflicts when you were young, and and those environmental conditions that you were given. I mean, you didn't have a choice. You were born into the family. For those that are watching that may, I guess, it's probably not going to become apparent to them how significant their surroundings are until they get a bit older. But is it something that you're always going to live with your entire life? Those environmental pressures that you bring onto yourself, or is it something you can grow out of? It sounds like it was something that you may have overcome that, or do you still deal with those same things, those internal conflicts that you had in your childhood?
I think to some extent it's hard to leave them behind, but certainly can be overcome.
Yeah.
I think growing and maturing and having life experiences can shift the way that you see the world and the way that you see yourself.
Yeah.
But I'd be lying if I said there weren't times where I still, feel anxious or let stress get to me. And it's about, learning how to recognise that within myself, and learning healthy ways to deal with it.
Yeah. How do you deal with tough times and adversities? Is there a time in your life where you've had a really tough time or adversity that you can think of that you overcame, or if so, like, what are some ways that you deal with or have dealt with difficult times?
Yeah, and I guess everyone deals with things differently. For myself, I value space and time, and when I feel like things are getting on top of me, when I'm too stressed with work or whatever it may be, just having a bit of time to decompress, to pause and breathe, I find invaluable. I find when I am stressed, when I am, finding that things are getting out of hand, that if I keep on going, that's when I'm more likely to burn out. And so just being able to recognise when I'm heading down that track, and just to put the brakes on a bit, spend some time with friends or family or my partner, I find very helpful. And that's just my way of managing some of those things.
Even though you're still only young, Nick, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment so far?
Well, I'm feeling older, turning 30 this year, but my greatest accomplishment, I don't know if it's any one thing. I think that becoming a doctor is certainly something that I'm proud of, and I think the most fulfilling part of that is having been able to have a significant impact on people's lives, especially in psychiatry. You're in a pretty privileged position, and I'm quite aware of that. But there are people whose lives have been improved through my help, and that's probably the most satisfying thing that I've had in my life.
What about the money? Does
helps?
Yeah.
I won't lie, it's not. But it's not everything, and I'm not sure. We briefly spoke about this recently in terms of, does money bring happiness? And I think to an extent money can help, and money certainly can make things easier, but I don't think that it necessarily brings personal fulfillment, and it doesn't bring satisfaction within yourself. It probably does come down to your own set of values, but for me, I value probably more who I am and who other people are, more so than how many dollars are in a bank account.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's moments, which I'm sure you have at work as well, where you get a reaction, or you form a kind of, even though you have your professional boundaries naturally as a doctor or as a health practitioner, there are certainly those times that money just cannot put a price on, and it wouldn't matter how much or how little money was involved. There's some things in there that's just it really gives you as much joy as it gives the person on the receiving end as well, the people, the patients that you're helping. And
I think you really do need to. The first thing is to enjoy what you do, and to find some kind of fulfillment in what you do. The money is important, but I think secondary, because if you can make as much money as you like, but at the end of the day, if you go home and you don't feel fulfilled, either within your work or within something else in your life, it doesn't have to be work. I think that there's an emptiness from that money can't fill.
Yeah. Nick, what is your favourite thing about yourself?
My favourite thing about myself, I think, is my capacity to listen and think and understand, the people, and probably to empathise, to sum it up. It's something that I certainly value as a trait in other people, and I like to think that I can do it as well.
Mm. Was being a psychiatrist, when you first started medical school, or for that fact when you finish year 12, or you finish biomedical science, or you finish medical school, was psychiatry always on the cards for you? Or what was on the cards for you initially in terms of this area of medicine?
No, it wasn't actually. Initially I thought I'd be a surgeon, probably a general surgeon, and I had probably slightly romanticised dreams of flying to countries in need and operating and saving lives. It sounds very exciting, but quickly learned that some of the realities and practicalities of being a surgeon and going through the training and some of the issues, probably more within the culture of surgery, probably wasn't something that I managed too well. And I, for a while there, thought about actually giving up on medicine while I was a medical student, because I was quite disenchanted with it. I did a rotation in a psychiatric unit in quite a low socioeconomic area in Victoria.
Where was that? In Sunshine, yep.
Yep. And absolutely adored it. Really enjoyed working with people who were struggling. Sometimes they didn't want your help. Sometimes they were quite angry. But I liked that people would come in a really challenging situations and not in a good way. And by the time they went home, I'm not saying they're fixed, but I would help them get in the right direction. And I, after that sort of experience as a student, that's really when I decided that that's where I wanted to end up.
Yeah, so from what you're saying, it was the experiences that you had with your patients, which is really what kind of drew you to psychiatry. So I don't know what... So when you went out to do this rotation in Sunshine, in medicine, particularly in a hospital setting, you're always working with colleagues as well as patients. What were your colleagues like? Were they quite warming as well? Did that have an impact on your view on psychiatry as well? Or was it just you and patients?
No, absolutely. And that's a big reason why I didn't end up in surgeries, because some of the personalities there didn't endear themselves to me. But psychiatry...
No, it's a nice way to put it. Endear themselves. That's funny. Yeah. So diplomatic. I love it. Yeah.
I'm just mindful as we get posted online, mate. Psychiatry I found in general, and there's always some who are better or worse, but some of the most genuinely lovely, warm, caring people. And I really found that their encouragement and their nurturing, both of patients and of myself, was probably instrumental in me going down this pathway.
Yeah. So, for the people that are listening, and what Nick hasn't mentioned is that, can you tell them about where you used to work while you're at, it was high school or uni. Can you tell them where you used to work?
I had a couple of jobs. Started off in a butcher shop.
Yep.
But I think Bunnings, is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So can you
So
tell?
my
Yeah, yep.
that was my way of getting through uni, and I didn't work there in high school. It was just in uni. Uh, to get a bit of money just to get some food and rent, that sort of thing. I did get some rent assist from the government, like New Start, but having the job on the side sort of, I needed it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get through.
Yeah. And so, if you went for that job at the butcher, let me first ask you a question. Your first job as a butcher, or when you were working at Bunnings, what were the people like there like? Your colleagues, I'm talking about.
Oh, they were really nice. The butcher shop was very blokey, as you may expect. Bunnings was a bit of a mix. You had people who worked in the garden section and more women around, certainly in the butcher shop. But they were all nice people. Just the kind of people that I knew growing up, and ex-tradies, and people who were genuinely quite authentic and genuine. And I really liked that workplace.
So for the people that might be listening in right now, let's say they've chosen a career. Okay, they've left high school, or they've got a part-time job while they're at high school, and they've got an idea. They've got a preconception about a particular job. They've got an idea of what they think it could be like, and they get to the job and they're not working with, as you say, people that endear to them, people that they don't people that don't really rub them up the right way. Should they quit that job completely, or should they go to a different workplace, or should they just stick it out and get used to it? What would your advice be?
Well, I think the first thing you need to consider is, can you actually afford to quit the job? Because, even though you don't like the people you work with, you need food on the table. So if it's not practical, then my advice would be to try and stick it out while considering what your other options may be. Because it's no good just throwing in the towel too early and stuffing yourself. There are options. Sometimes difficulties that you have with colleagues can be worked out, and I've certainly, butted heads with people, and then later on, you work out how to work with them and can repair relationships. Sometimes things are irreparable, and you can't get along with people, or you really don't like what you're doing. And then that's probably when it's time to start thinking about what are the other options. Can you move to another area within the same job? Is it just the workplace and the people you're working with? And would you enjoy the job but in a different area? Or are you finding that the actual work itself is something that you're not enjoying, that is draining you, that you're suffering because of? And then maybe you need to consider looking at going down another pathway, which is what happened to me with surgery. It was the whole package I just didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
And I needed to evaluate.
For young people that, let's say they start a job and then they don't like the people that they work with, so let's say that they stop working, let's say they go to 2 or 3 jobs and they don't like who they work with there. What would your advice to be to them as to what to do?
I'm going to really sound like a psychiatrist here, and I think if you're finding that wherever you go, you're running into the same issue, which is that you're not getting on with people, then I would seriously have a think about why that is and what's going on in your own life that may be impacting your relationships with other people. If you're finding that you're really angry all the time, whether you're really sensitive to people, feeling like people are letting you down or being judged, often those reactions can really come down to more about what's going on within ourselves rather than the other person. And not always the case, but sometimes a bit of soul searching and getting an external perspective, whether it's with mates or family, or whether you do want to speak to someone externally, can sometimes be helpful in just figuring out why you're running into these problems over and over again. And having a mentor or someone that you can respect and who can offer a bit of judgment, or not judgment, guidance rather, you don't want judgment, can be very helpful.
Yeah. So, for people that are wanting to, people that are going through difficult times in their lives and they're wanting someone to kind of talk to and open up to, who do you think's the most appropriate? Do you think the most appropriate person to talk to is a family member, is a friend, is a mentor, is someone completely independent like a psychiatrist?
Oh, look, it's totally dependent on the person and who the people in their lives are that they love and they respect. I think having someone in your life who is like a mentor figure or someone that you can look up to, usually someone with a bit more experience in life, is an important thing. Not everyone has that, though, unfortunately. And if you're someone who doesn't have a family member or a friend who has that stability in their life that you can ask about, that you can emulate, then sometimes it can be helpful to have someone like a psychologist or a counsellor, or sometimes a psychiatrist who you can come to and speak to about some of these issues you've been having. But it really does depend on the individual, I think, and the particular things that you're going through and what you need.
What is something, Nick, you're certain you'll never experience in your life, and why?
It's a very hard question.
It is a hard question.
Yeah. Something I'm certain I'll never experience is this is gonna seem quite sad, but the truth is I wasn't a happy child, and that's something that I probably won't get to experience as a really happy childhood.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to come to terms with, but and I was quite angry about it for a long time, but did come to terms with it.
Yeah.
If I'm being totally honest with you, that's probably the thing.
Yeah. And are you finding? Do you still have? Do you think about that? Do you think about that often? How often is that something that you think about? Is there anything you're doing to kind of come to terms with it, or you've come to terms with it, or?
No, it's not something I think about very much, to be honest. Probably I used to. In terms of in coming to terms with it, it really was about life experience and accepting that it was something that I wasn't going to have, but deciding that even though I didn't have that, I could still have happiness. I could still go on and have a good life, and making that decision, I suppose, in a sense, to let go.
Yeah. It's it's great that you've obviously found a way to continue to refine yourself, because a lot of people get stuck in their ways, particularly the more we age, the more we kind of get stuck in our ways. And I think anyone that has that strength to be able to continue to adapt and grow, and particularly self-reflect, is a massive strength, because a lot of people, it's almost, I think it's almost impossible to truly self-reflect in an unbiased way, in a completely objective way, because we've got lots of hormones, and you're a psychiatrist, but to try and work really hard to analyze and assess your own life and your own emotions as good as you can, I think is a real strength. So it just gives, yeah.
It is hard to, and I don't for a second, claim to have accurate self-reflection. I think you do need someone outside yourself, like a mentor or family or a mate, who can give you that perspective. Because you're always looking at yourself through either rose-tinted glasses, or sometimes the opposite. Sometimes you're too harsh on yourself. And getting an inside perspective is pretty important, I think.
Yeah. And I think, me personally, I think it's a real strength to have, and it's very hard to do it in a balanced fashion, but you almost need to be your own harshest critic, but your own biggest fan at the same time. And however you perceive that you've behaved in the past, reflect on it, accept it. It can't be changed, and remember that the day is still young. The life is still young. We've still got so much life to live in this. The beauty about being young is that you're forgiven quite quickly for your actions. I think you get held a lot more to a higher accountability. You're a lot more accountable. You're held to a higher, you're held a lot more responsible as you get less young or as you age more. So, I think we need to, it's a great lesson what you're saying there. We need to just accept things as they are. Hopefully we can learn one thing from it, then that just makes the exercise worthwhile, and that can help shape us into the future. I've got another question. Nick, who's one person that you trust the most, and why is that?
I think probably my mother. I'd say I trust the most. Every boy's mum is always the most important woman in their life. People often say, but not always true. But in my case, I was lucky in that I had a mum who I knew always had my back, and who I know will continue to.
What is one hidden talent you have?
Oh, I don't know about that. I'd like to say I was a good singer, but I'm not. I think, I didn't really prepare answers for these, I'll be honest with you, Daniel.
That's fine. Absolutely fine. It's better I think it's nicer when it comes from the heart anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine.
A hidden talent, I don't know. I think something that I don't advertise, if you call it a talent or not, is that I love stories, and I will always have time to listen to a story. And I don't know if you call it a talent or maybe just a character trait, but I'm very inquisitive. I love to learn, I love to hear, I love to listen. And it's not juggling, it's not some kind of out there performance, but I would say a skill is being interested, and it's something you can work on and train, certainly, but I would say it's one of my biggest skills is just being able to be interested in the world around you.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm going to give you a bit of a wild card question here, Nick.
Sure.
Which 3 words describe you best?
Which 3 words? That is a wild card. I'd say empathic would be one. Patient. And stubborn, if I'm being honest.
And stubborn. Well, the first 2 are perfect for a psychiatrist.
Well, the third one less so, but if I'm being honest, I'm a stubborn bastard sometimes.
Yeah. Nick, I just want to say thank you so much. You always have been and continue to be an absolute gentleman. You're a fantastic role model for any young person out there. You continue to pave the way for your family. It's something that you haven't actually mentioned tonight, but you're the first doctor in your family. And you do come from very, very humble it's a bit of a cliche, but you come from very humble beginnings, and you're a very exceedingly humble man. A message that I want to send out to the kids is that you've got person A and person B, and they both have the exact same skill level. Person A continually advertises themselves, promotes themselves, talks about themselves, and then person B talks about other people. They never advertise themselves. They have exceptional manners, and they've got time for everyone. And Nick is person B. And in life, person B is always the person that's going to do better. Even though person B has the same skill as person A, they're regarded a lot higher by their peers and colleagues. And in life, it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. And a lot of the time, what you know is secondarily or tertiary, has tertiary importance. But to do well and to be successful in life, you have to know how to be liked. You have to be a likable person, because that's how you get your promotion. That's how you get the job. When someone hires you, they've got to spend 30, 40 hours, as an example, a week. So they want someone smart, but more importantly, they want someone that's relatable, that's down to earth, that's approachable, that doesn't demean them, that encourages them. And it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're good, you actually don't need to advertise yourself. Other people will do the advertising for you. I mean, Nick's a fantastic example of that. You really are the benchmark of chivalry and, just being an all-round gentleman. And I mean that. I really do. So, I mean, we always have fantastic conversations. And I know that you're going to continue to be remarkably successful throughout your practicing career. And I mean it, mate.
Very kind of you, Daniel. One thing I will say is, we talked about person A and person B. I think it is important, though, to be able to recognise when you do have something to offer. And it is okay, I think, to let people know. Because it's something I certainly found with myself. And this is something I speak about from experience, is that when you can do something and you don't let people know, they don't always get to find out about it. I think it's important to be able to do some kind of self-promoting.
Yeah.
Because it can be challenging for people to know your skills, your work. You don't want to be bragging, but I think it's okay sometimes to acknowledge your strengths.
What would you say the difference between, knowing your strengths and humbly promoting yourself? What's the difference between that and bragging? Is there a fine line? Is it a grey area?
I think the key thing with bragging, people who brag, is generally there's some kind of insecurity there and a need to be looked up to or respected. And bragging is really about building yourself up in other people's eyes.
Yeah.
Whereas I think being able to let people know what you can do without needing their approval or needing to be loved or respected or looked up to is, I think that's the difference. The difference is really within the person and the intent with which they sell themselves.
And how do you think that would relate to kids at school? Is there a certain way that teenagers should act when they're at school? How should one behave at school? Should they brag? Should they be really humble? How do you think? Is there a right way to behave?
I don't think there's necessarily a right way, and I will say it's been a while since I've been in school. But I think the one thing that, certainly something that I think is still the same, is that acting with integrity and being true to yourself will always shine through. Some people are naturally more outgoing. I was a pretty quiet kid, and I think if I was to try to change who I was, I probably would have run into trouble. But I will say that I always was true to myself, in that I didn't try to misrepresent myself. I didn't try to be someone who I wasn't. And I think that in terms of the right or wrong thing to do, I think so long as you're acting in a way that you can respect about yourself and that's true to your character, so long as it's not hurting anyone else, I think that that's probably the right way to go about things.
It's been an absolute pleasure this evening, and I mean that. It's 9:30 p.m. on a Sunday night. I really appreciate your time. You are a busy man. You are Melbourne's most wanted psychiatrist. So,
That is certainly not true, Daniel. You one day see how we go.
really appreciate your time, mate.
My pleasure, Daniel.
Thank you so much. Pleasure was mine.